wish you a continuous good year. I was thinking about this video for a while, and I thought I might share it with you. Basically how I reasoned after studying a lot, and what basically were the criteria for selecting my sailboat. And selecting the sailboat, my sailboat, is very much about what type of sailing I wanted to do. So here are 10 criteria how I thought. Let's start with what I wanted to use the sailboat for. I wanted mainly to use it for coastal sailing, cruise sailing, not race sailing or anything like that. I knew that most of the cases I will be sail with 2 people. Average would be 4 people and maybe maximum 6 people. So when I looked, there were a few criteria. I need to check my notes so I don't forget. But basically, number 1 is the budget. I didn't want to take any credit for the boat. I was willing to put around $15,000. That's what I have. And I wanted a boat that I could afford to maintain and to actually live aboard and to sail long passages with. So with that in mind, the boat couldn't be too large, because then I couldn't afford it from the first place, and secondly, I could never afford to maintain it and to service it, and also I couldn't afford to have it pulled out or in the marina, because the tariffs for a boat, my boat is Nordship 28 foot long boat. That's basically 8 meters around, and she's about 3 meters wide. And she is very spacious to be a 28 foot boat, and that has to do with her design. So when I started, when I had no experience at all, I was dreaming about, selling my house and buy the biggest boat I could for all the money I had. And then I realized how expensive it is, with all the spare parts you need to replace because things break, and they do break. How expensive it is to pull out the boat, how expensive it is to have the boat in a dock, and so on and so on. It just kept being quite a lot about. So my dream was always to sail south from Sweden, where my boat is located, and I decided that I want to really explore the coast of Portugal and maybe go into Spain and further into the Mediterranean longer on. When I first started, my first dream was to go over the Atlantic and go to the Caribbean like everybody else, but then I got more and more realistic thinking about it. So I ended up with this boat due to I didn't want to take a credit, and also the size of the boat fitted my purpose and my budget for a long term. So when talking about budget, you can say that the tariff for this type of boat, let's say a harbor like Lagos in Portugal, it's around 17 euro a day. If you go up to, say, 34 feet, that's around 10 meter, 10 times 4 type of boat. You immediately end up over 20, 22, 25 euro. So what I'm saying is that the linear is not, it's not linear, it goes like this up. The bigger the boat, just very much more expensive are the tariffs in the marina. Now, of course, we cannot be in the marina all the time, but when during passage and so on, when you're actually going to your destination, you need to go into the marina to get provision, water, fill up diesel, etc., etc. Okay, so that's a little bit the basics about the boat. When I bought this boat, she was basically, as she came from the factory in Denmark. So she had no expensive nav, there was no extra on board. She was basically the original Nordship 28 boat. No fancy marine or navionics or no fancy navigation equipment, I should say. And that suited me as well, because I wanted to custom my boat the way I wanted her to be. I wanted to select the plotter I liked, the wind instrument I liked, yeah, all of that. And I also wanted to do the electrics myself, because I know this boat is from 81, and I know if someone has been doing a lot of own projects, things on board, it's very hard to take over unless it's very well done and very well documented. That was another reason. So I really wanted to, I didn't mind that she was quite, you know, she was not that well equipped, I would say, but the rigging was fine and all of that. Well, we come to that. The next issue that I really wanted when I was looking for different types of boats, then I decided very early on that I wanted a center cockpit boat. And I wanted a steering wheel. The reason is it's well protected. The cockpit is very safe. It normally has some kind of dodger or fixed window or that type of construction, and it has a rear cabin. So, but the main reason for the center cockpit is that it's good when you're single sailing, because you can reach everything very well. I'll get back to that more in detail, because I knew that I was going to be sailing quite a lot on my own, single-handed sailing. So when I looked at this, the way the cockpit was designed on Lovisa, I could very well immediately see that from the helm I could use all the reefs point, everything, all the control lines for the sailing on both sides. I had a very, very good overview, both front and rear of the boat, and I immediately saw that I could put all my navigation instrument in the center of the boat. And it was a very deep cockpit and very clean in terms of there was no things that were in the way or could get broken or anything. So it was very clean design, and I like that a lot compared to other boats I have been sailing. And you're very well protected from rough weather and rough conditions, both wind and rain and everything. Okay, then we started to look at rigging, and I wanted a rigging that was not complicated and that I could find spares everywhere. So this boat has a masthead rigging, and the Genoa is on the furler, and that suited my needs very well. The mast, complete mast and boom, aluminium, no, exactly as it is from the factory. It had the Celdine furler, which is a very high quality brand, because when you have problems with the rigging, it's 9 out of 10 cases it's something to do with the Genoa furler in the peak. Okay, that was that about the rigging. I also was very happy to see that she had a Volvo Penta engine, because Volvo Penta is a Swedish brand and there are spare parts available for this MD-11C basically everywhere in the world. It's a very simple 2-cylinder engine, and this one has 23 horsepower, so it's a little bit more power in terms of horsepower than in a regular boat engine. She weighs around 3 tons. So with that combination and 28 foot, the engine is very well in proportion to the size and the hull and the weight of the boat. So when she handles very well when going for the engine, independent of conditions basically. That has to do also that I decided to put on a 3-blade prop instead of the 2-blade prop that she had originally. So she goes very well in both port and starboard side on reverse, for instance, which can be a problem on many boats. We'll come back to that more in detail later. So that was good. Volvo Penta engine means easy to find spare parts, easy to maintain, not a complicated machine, and that means also it reflects on the cost. Then looking at the construction from the sailboat itself, and then we come down to the keel, and here there are a lot of different opinions what you should have for a keel, especially if you want to go long passages. Lovisa has a thin keel. It's a steel keel of 1.7 ton, and the good thing with my keel on this boat is that it's completely encapsulated in polyester and glass fiber. So of course the keel is bolted like all other normal boats, but you don't have any, how do you say, any gap whatsoever between the hull and the keel, so it's completely solid. Maybe you've heard of the cracking boats that they basically mold it completely with the keel, but this is kind of a compromise in between. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, then comes to the rudder. Here I'm not a fan of new boats where the rudder design seems very poorly, I must say. You want to be safe on a boat, and one very important thing, at least in my opinion, is that you have a skeg or a skeg rudder. That means you have a solid construction all the way down where the rudder is mounted. That means if you hit something, if you have this bad, unfortunately hit something that it just takes the rudder, it normally hits first the skeg, which is a very, very solid construction made of steel inside, and it has polyester and glass fiber over it. So that holds really the rudder in place. So it has a bearing also in the bottom and not only in the top, because you can imagine if you have a rudder without a skeg and it's only solid point is up here, if you hit something, you know, the bearings and everything, they go immediately, even with a small kind of stone or whatever you can hit. I think you understand me what I mean. So I'm gonna cut up and show you some pictures exactly what I mean. Yeah, when talking about rudder, now we talked about the keel, we talked about the rudder, and let's talk about the hull. This hull on Lovisa is very, very thick. It's much thicker than normal. That means the plastic and the glass fiber is thicker than on a normal fabrication boat or production boat. I like that a lot. She's very, very solid. And that means also when sailing that she takes wind and waves very well. And it's also when you have a hull made out of pure polyester and glass fiber, you can fix, you know, a damage on the hull if it would happen. You know. What I've done with the hull, I take it all down completely to the polyester, and then I put 7 coats of epoxy primer on it, a special epoxy primer, and that also means that the polyester or the plastic doesn't suck up water, because they suck up a lot of water otherwise. That I did last winter. So that is good. When it comes to the deck, Lovisa is a little bit special on that topic as well, or thinking about that, because she is not what you call a flush deck boat. That means she doesn't have a overbuilding, or the windows are along the hull side, so she's completely flat on top of the deck. That means when you walk around and you manage your sail and everything, there's nothing in the way for you to move around when packing sails and fixing sails, or being on the boat deck. The deck itself is just pure polyester and gel coat, so there's no teak, and I didn't want the old 80 boat with teak deck, like a Nayad. I really like a Nayad boats. I looked at them very carefully, but many of them has, you know, these teak decks that are screwed through the deck, and after a while they just take in water. That is, and you have to redo that after 8-10 years if it's not done. So from a maintenance point of view and from a cost point of view, I didn't want a teak deck. So I'm very pleased with that. That was that. Yeah, and then we come to the last point, basically, the interior, because that was basically the last item on the list. I didn't care so much how she looked inside. I'm very fond that she has this old original teak panels and everything, but more important than that, okay, it looks nice, but more important from a functionality point of view is that she has an aft cabin. Because when you sail and you have and you do passages and you basically shift watch, you can really put the crew members that are not on watch in the aft cabin, and they can really be sleeping there very undisturbed from the rest of things that's going on in the boat. So if they were sleeping in here, there's always someone in the kitchen, or if they're sleeping there, now they're sleeping, you get disturbed basically. So it's really good, and if you have guests, they are in the aft cabin, they can do whatever they want. The saloon is always nice and clean, and I sleep in the front. So I really like that setup. 2 people in the front, 2 people when we go with maximum crew in the saloon, and 2 adults in the aft cabin. And also that the toilet is a water toilet that is central placed. A really good kitchen with gas. I have also a complement that is non-gas in case I run out of gas. That goes on this flammable petroleum. And a really decent, quite large kitchen. Water pumps, and the layout is good. So that was basically my 10 criteria for selecting a sailboat I wanted to have for my planning of going south and mainly sailing coast, mainly doing coastal sailing, but occasionally crossing bigger, how should I say, a little bit more ocean-like areas like the Vizcaya, or going to the Mediterranean, or like we did last year, we went to Visby, over the Baltic Sea. But basically a compact, safe boat that fitted my budget and had these 10 criteria. So I'm going to just repeat them for you. So it was mainly budget, has to do with purchase, maintenance, and that I didn't want to take the credit. That she was a center cockpit boat, that means she was protected and some kind of dodger. That I was able to sail her single-handed. That the rigging was a furling roll and a masthead rig. That the engine was of a well-known brand and it was easy to find spares and do maintenance and service on it. That she had a well-built keel that was encapsulated. That the rudder was of the type of a skeg rudder, and that she had a steering wheel as well, and that the hull was a normal polyester / fiberglass hull, that the deck then had no teak on it, and that the interior was kind of divided when it comes to sleeping quarters for the crew. Okay, that was quite a long list. Well, you can look more into the details of the pictures, and they will explain more what I'm talking about. Just one thing that I can mention before we end this session. I said $15,000 for basically Lovisa when I bought her, and I can say that I had put in way over $15,000 to get her into this condition that she is now. So more than maybe 1.5 times the purchasing price is invested in the boat to get her ready for long passage sailing. So that is easy 15K in the boat in just equipment and solar panels and navigation and windlass and sails, all of that. That's going to be a separate topic, what I did and what's the most important, what I consider the most important things to do if you want to upgrade your boat for long passage sailing. But that's another topic for the next time. Okay guys, thank you very much, and thank you very much for following.